Okay, third recording. Prop anim interactable is basically a prop that is animated and can be interacted with by the player. I've made a simple model here that is set up with 3 bones, a simple wheel with a rotation, and a knot that the player can grab onto to rotate the wheel. So I have 3 bones. I have a base bone. Let's show the schematic view. So I have my mesh, my base bone, a valve bone, and an interact bone. These 3 are all linked together as a hierarchy where the base is the parent. The base is not animated, does not move. If you have a model that is partially static and does not need to animate, you would skin weight that at 100% to the base, in case you want to have, for example, like a socket or something for this wheel that does not rotate. Yeah, then you would basically skin weight that to the base. The valve bone handles the rotation, and the mesh is 100% skin weighted to the valve bone. The interact bone acts as a attachment point, and that's where the hand pose will attach to the model for the interaction. I've set up a simple animation. Let me get the right bone. So on the valve bone, you can see I have 4 keyframes, 60 frames for basic rotation. Technically, you only need a start and an end position, but to prevent like gimbal locking, I've added extra bones for like a simple rotation. The animation should be as simple as possible. You don't want any ease in or out. It needs to be an entirely linear animation. As you can see here, I've removed any sort of ease in, ease out. It's a straight line. Nothing fancy in terms of animations, because the animation is entirely driven by the player interaction and the entity properties. It's not handled by the animation on the model. Can also show the skin weighting, I assume. So just on the skin weighting modifier, I have the 3 bones assigned, the base and the valve. The base and the interact have nothing assigned to them, and the mesh is 100% weighted to the valve bone that handles the rotation. So I've exported all of this to an FBX file. In the export, it is important for the smoothing groups to be enabled. I also bake down the animation from 0 to 60 frames, so our entire animation is included. And in the unit setup, I make sure that the scene units match with the engine. In this case, source 2, it is inches. So I can just export this. Now I can bring it into ModelDoc, which is a tool that allows you to set up models for in-game use. This includes any sort of physics, collision holes, material groups, LODs, bone hierarchies, animations, and so on. So I've already done the setup for this prop. On the left side here, we have all our properties, and on the right side, we have the compiled model. So I brought in the render mesh, which is basically a simple mesh. There was no material assigned to it, so I've also assigned a default material group with a simple orange material, so you can at least see the model in game without the error material. Additionally, I've also set up the bone markup list. So what this tool likes to do is remove all the bones that are not used for skin weighting. So we would only keep the valve bone, but I need the entire hierarchy. So I've basically set it to not discard any of the bones, because the base, we in this case we don't really need the base. But but we definitely need the valve and the interact, because the interact, as I said before, will handle as an attachment point for the hand post to attach to. I've also set up the animation. Just imported the FVX again because it has the animation data embedded into it. It's set up from 0 to 60 frames, 30 frames per second. And it has the looping flag checked, so I can loop this as many times as I want. I can preview the animation. So as you can see, simple linear rotation that will get in loop. That's it. And we can move on to the hand pose data. Here on the hand poses, we have a bunch of presets like grab, pull, flat palm, pointing, knob, custom, embedded. These basically correlate to the hand pose. Can't type. So the hand pose models that are pre-existing already, which are like animations for the player hand. These are simple idles. I don't think they have any transitions. Like the transition from the player hand to this idle pose is basically gradual. I think it interplays between the two. So I've also set it here to allow procedural hand poses. That needs to be enabled. For the hand pose pair, here it basically handles the positioning of the hand, the sequence, and so on. So I've set it to do a cylinder grab, but there's like multiple of these. We can move these hands individually. No, not this. Where is it? Here. That's the one I need. So yeah, we can move these hands individually. We can do rotation and positioning. Set the bone as the interact one bone, which is this bone here on the handle that it attaches to. Hold on, I can show it. Here's the bone. So we have this for left and right, but since I want it to be mirrored, I will just like basically mirror these values. Yeah, we have like the origin and the angles for both for the left and the right hand. The max distance is basically a sphere that starts from the interact one bone, like a sphere of influence, and once the player hand intersects with that sphere, it will transition to the cylinder grab animation. And we can also individually pose all the fingers to. I've already done some presets here, so let's undo that. You can see what I'm talking about. So this is the cylinder grab animation. This is the idle grab, just like more for like box, and cylinder grab. There we go. Now we can pose the individual fingers like their curvature. I think that's the word for it. I'm not 100% sure. Basically, as you can see, it does that in both hands at the same time, so you don't need to do the same work twice. I've got a left and a right hand here because I want the player to be able to grab it with either hand in case they have something occupying one of their hands. They can do it with the other. Yeah, as you can see, it curls finger, so you can adapt the existing pose to fit to your model. As you can see, it's pretty okay-ish. There's a little bit of clipping going on, so I can probably adjust it a little bit. I think that's the index. There we go. And now I can move this back into position. I believe this needs to be 0.75 minus 0.75, and it should be the exact mirror of the right hand. Yeah, there we go. As you can see, grabs onto the handle. As for the rotation. I also have like the has rotation flag checked here. That's basically this white axis that you can see which is defined by two user defined endpoints. So I just drag these out, and it defines the axis around which the hand can rotate while grabbed onto this handle, the interact one bone rather. So it basically allows the hand to be a little bit more organic and move separate from the animation itself. So otherwise the hand would be like statically rotating with the wheel when it turns. Let's see. There, I think I already I already showed these. I think that's everything for the ModelDoc setup. Yep, so it needs to be compiled. Once that's done, you can go to the editor. So I've already done the setup here. I put in the prop anim interactable entity with the correct model assigned. The limit forward and backward are basically restricting the animation range forward this many cycles. As you know, we did a single loop animation. If you set the limit forward to 4, it will loop 4 times in the forward direction. And I've also set return to completion to be enabled, so if the player lets go of the wheel before completing the interaction, the wheel will return to its initial state. I've also hooked up sounds like start, movement, stop, and a bounce sound. And you can also control the motion style. This is important because if you do this on the animation, it will not behave correctly. Basically, everything on the entity is customizable, so it's very flexible. It's very modular. We have easy in, easy out, easy in only, and so on, bounce, slurp, and yeah, whole bunch of settings. The initial completion amount is 0, so basically the start of the animation. You can also modify this, and then you have the completion value A, B, C, D, E, F, and so on. These are all modifiable by the level designer, so they can input any value. If you keep in mind our limit forward here is 4, so I've set A4 is full completion, then we have a B on 2, which is 50%, and C0, the start position. Let's see, if we go to the outputs, you can see here that I've hooked up some entities to the on completion B, which correlates with these values. So B 50%, steam will start. This is a particle, it just starts displaying a particle. And on completion C, which is 0, or the start of the animation, the particle will stop. So if I rotate to B 50%, I let go of the wheel, it will auto return to its initial start position, which is 0 or C, and it will stop the particle. I've done the same for the steam sound, which is start and stop. And on completion A, which is 4, so the full 4 cycles, it will lock the wheel and you can no longer interact with it. And since it's already past B, it will keep playing the steam particle and the sound. Okay, let's save that and run that. Controls are off, that's why my hands are on the floor. Come on, stand. Okay, there we go. There's something throwing off my tracking a little bit in my room. So, we have the interaction range. As you can see, this is here. The bone is here. So if I come with my hand and I close into the volume, it will transition to the grab knob or pole animation that I defined earlier. As you can see, it transitions
like interpolates between the player hand position. Yeah, the tracking is not really great right now. And then transitions. Jesus. Then transitions to that animation. And now if I squeeze my hand on my controller, it will grab the handle, and I can start interacting with the wheel by rotating it. If I let go, it will return to the start position. If I hit 50%, which was the completion B value, it will start playing the steam particle. So 50, steam turns on. If I go to like 3 and let go, it will return. Once it hits 0, it will stop the particle. Now I can complete a full rotation, which is value A for 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. It will lock. I can let go and it won't return, because I've told the output to lock the wheel when I reached value A, which is 4 rotations. And now it will keep playing the steam particle and the sound. So that's basically it. It's a relatively straightforward setup, but it is extremely modular, because we can basically create any model with any animation. The only thing we have to keep in mind is that the interaction should not be too big, too wide, so we can preferably perform the animation from a single position without having to relocate. But it is possible to do it, like if we disable auto completion, we could move the handle with the interact bone around and follow a bone animated to follow a spline, let it go, teleport, reposition, grab the handle again, and keep moving it along. So that's also possible, but usually in Half-Life Alyx they perform all the interactions from a single position where you just don't need to move. Yeah, like I said, it's extremely flexible. Like the entity itself handles most of the setup and customization of how the prop actually ends up behaving. I can show a few examples of the ones they used in game. Look for anim interactable. They have levers of various sorts. These just like an up, down, sliding lever, a rotating lever, a rotating crank that you have to like a pull switch that you pull out first and rotate and then push in again. Another lever like door handles that like rotate. More levers. A wheel, a radio antenna, a rotating button, a rolling door that slides up and down, and multiple variations of it. A sliding window, and even for like the pistol slide that you can manually pull back by grabbing it on the back end and then squeezing your controller and pulling it back to like manually cock the gun, like unload a bullet into the magazine. Yeah, it's extremely flexible, like I said. We have a lot of these here that are like entirely modifiable. We can customize the entire behavior, hook up different sounds, hook up a different model, different animations. Like basically all of the animated interactables are done this way in Half-Life Alyx. We can even like modify the resistance and the friction, release some damage. Like when the player is shot, they will automatically let go of it. Yeah, and in any case, if you have more questions, I'd be more than happy to help you out and answer any of them. So yeah, I'm looking forward to hear from you, and I hope this has been a little bit educational, and yeah, I guess that's it. See you.